Weight is one of the oddest mechanics in Pokemon. Is there really a point to it besides giving Pokemon extra zest, exemplifying them being an absolute unit, or just a wee lad? Competitive players are aware of moves that factor in weight, but I want to dig in deeper and get all the juicy information where weight actually matters, competitively and casually, to decide how important is weight actually. We'll start with some fun facts about weight. Pokemon can range between 0.1 kilograms, which is 1/5 of a pound, all the way up to 999.9 kilograms, which ends up being just over 2,200 pounds. It seems like a somewhat fixed number to not bring an extra digit in there. We actually have 2 Pokemon who reach that limit. Celesteela, which makes sense because this beast is just a 9-meter tall space shuttle, essentially made of steel. And then we have Cosmoem, which I realized I never had to say this mon's name out loud before. It also maxes out the chart at nearly 1,000 kilograms. This is one dense little fella, measuring only a few inches long, but it makes sense it's so heavy as it's constantly absorbing starlight, or dust from the air depending on which game you're asking. Primal Groudon is basically just as heavy, coming in at a slightly lower 999.7 kilograms. The heaviest Pokemon who isn't a legendary, Ultra Beast, or Mega is Mudsdale, with the horse coming in at a whopping 920 kilograms, which is a little over 2,000 pounds. On the flip side, Pokemon that essentially weigh nothing are Flabébé, Roaming Gimmighoul, the legendary Cosmog, who definitely needs to get back in the bag, a Paraghost, Ghastly, and Haunter, and the Ultra Beast Kartana, which definitely packs the most punch per pound in the Pokemon universe. These all come in at 0.1 kilograms, which is about 1/5 of a pound. Overall, we have 21 Pokemon who come in at under a pound and 36 that come in under a kilogram. I'm going to cover the heaviest and lightest mons of each type later, and which types weigh the most and least on average, but first we have to talk about in-battle situations. Competitively, we do have a few instances where weight does matter in ways it can be manipulated. These are in the forms of moves, items, abilities, and other game mechanics. The moves Low Kick and Grass Knot are definitely what most people will think of when weight comes into play. Their base power is determined by the target's weight, with heavier Pokemon taking more damage. They work on the same formula. It can range from 20 base power when targeting a very light Pokemon under 10 kilograms to striking at an impressive 120 base power when hitting a mon weighing in at 200 kilograms or more. This makes these moves pretty solid options in Ubers, where we see a lot of heavier legendaries. You can hit a Low Kick for 120 base power without drawbacks like you would have with close combat dropping defenses. You just risk reliability against certain lighter mons. Heavy Slam and Heat Crash are the other moves that directly use weight in their damage formula. In this case, the move uses the target's relative weight against the user. This can range from 40 base power if the target's weight is more than 50% of the user's, and can scale to 120 base power if the target weighs 20% or less than the user. It's a little bit more in your control, as you obviously will only use these moves on Pokemon that have that dump truck on them. So the consistency of these moves usually have them see more use than their Low Kick and Grass Knot counterparts. The move Autotomize is a status move that increases your speed by 2 stages and makes you nimble, which takes 100 kilograms off the user's weight. Ready for beach season in 1 turn. This can be used multiple times to become lighter and lighter until you reach the minimum weight. Sky Drop is another move that factors weight in, but it is all or nothing with this move. Targets weighing 200 kilograms or more can't be lifted by Sky Drop. The move will fail and you've wasted a turn. This is also the same weight class where Low Kick and Grass Knot reach their max power. Side note, it's pretty funny that a mon like Rufflet has the same weightlifting restrictions as mons like Dragonite and the Megazard forms. Once they hit 200 kilograms, they're maxed out. When it comes to abilities, we have the mostly underwhelming Heavy Metal and Light Metal. These abilities double and half the user's weight respectively. And while usually underwhelming, they do give some great talking points for this video specifically about weight. Light Metal is a fairly uncommon ability halving your weight. This potentially lets you take less damage from moves like Low Kick and Grass Knot, the former being nice because Steel is weak to fighting, and the latter being meh since they already resist Grass. It doesn't really have a use competitively though, since every user is better off with different abilities. Maybe potentially Duraludon, but we also have to factor in that you're potentially increasing damage from Heavy Slam, and more importantly, Heat Crash. Metagross is heavy enough that even with Light Metal, it will still take maximum damage from Low Kick and Grass Knot. I covered this in another video, but the only way you can get Metagross to go under the weight threshold to make these moves weaker is to hold the item Float Stone, which I will cover in a bit. In battle, you can also mimic a Totemize from another Pokemon, which can do the trick, but it looks like it's a transfer move on Metagross that can't be used in Generation 9 outside of National Dex formats. Heavy Metal doubling weight is the only way to have a Pokemon pass the 999 kilogram limit. Copperajah already comes in at 650 kilograms and has access to this ability. This lets it hit 1300 kilograms, which is around 2,866 pounds, making it the heaviest Pokemon possible in the game. A transformed Pokemon will copy the weight of the Mon it's transformed into, so when this Mew transforms into Copperajah, it will become just as heavy, as you can see it taking more from a resisted Grass Knot than a neutral one when it comes back in not transformed. When it comes to items, we have just the previously mentioned Float Stone to cover. This will halve the holder's weight, which interacts with all those beautiful moves we've covered. Non-items seen competitively could be used casually, I guess, if you know your opponent will be using Low Kick or Grass Knot and you don't have better options in your bag. It would be nice to have the item Iron Ball increase the user's weight in addition to its normal effect. It's kind of strange we have this one item that can affect weight, but holding a heavy ball of iron doesn't do anything. Dynamax and Gigantamax Pokemon don't have a measurable weight in-game and are unaffected by moves that calculate damage using it. Low Kick, Grass Knot, Heavy Slam, and Heat Crash will all fail if used on a Dynamax or Gigantamax target. Now I want to talk about balls real quick. Heavy balls, that is. The Heavy Ball is a type of Pokeball that has its modifier entirely based off the Pokemon's weight. Like the name implies, it is more effective against heavier Pokemon, but it is also less effective against lighter Pokemon, with Mons 99.9 kilograms or lower actually getting a -20 modifier to the catch rate. This nifty chart shows the scaling of the catch rate in relation to the Pokemon's weight. As of recent generations, you gain +20 for Pokemon between 200 and 299 kilograms, and a +30 for Mons over 300 kilograms. It previously would give up to a +40 modified catch rate, but not anymore. There is also the Light Ball, but unfortunately for this video, it isn't a Pokeball and has nothing to do with weight. Something new I learned weight related has to do with early generations. The Fancy Cup, known as the Petite Cup in Generation 1, has a similar concept to the Little Cup format we know and love today. It is an in-game format you can play in Pokemon Stadium. They have certain restrictions of which Pokemon can be used. These include only being able to use the lowest in an evolution line, a level cap of 30, no Pokemon taller than 2 meters, and more relevantly, no Pokemon weighing above 20 kilograms. There are also a set of rules you can use in the DPP games called the Light Cup. Pokemon are required to be at their earliest evolutionary stage, but can be any height as long as they don't exceed 99 kilograms. Definitely very niche game modes to play, but this is a very niche video, so why not include them? So how important is weight actually? Well, it's a mechanic that rarely comes into play, but it isn't so rare that you can completely ignore it. There are a few moves that factor it in, but you aren't really going to make huge team building decisions around these select scenarios when there's so many other things to worry about. It is just another interesting attribute that further shows how detailed competitive Pokemon can be. The best answer I can give is it isn't important until it is. Most battles it won't be a factor, and battles where it is will likely be because one move on one Mon you can answer easily with a resist. Should we have more moves, items, and abilities that interact with them? Let me know your ideas in the comments, buds. I have a few more fun facts about weight to finish the video I know you'll enjoy. For those wondering, here are the heaviest Pokemon per type. Yeah, a lot of legendaries. Here are the lightest of each type. A lot of first stagers, but some threats like Kartana, and a lot of Rotom forms in here. And here's a ranking of every type's average weight, which was definitely the longest part of making this video because I had to manually do it in Google Sheets since ChatGPT keeps including Mons like Cosmoem as a steel type for some reason and just forgetting entire Mons. Plus I can't totally trust it with some of the answers it gives me. I included regional variants and distinct usable forms. I just didn't include Mega Evolved Pokemon for this, and some certain edge cases like form changing abilities. So Minior shields up and shields down, Aegislash shield and blade form, or Palafin Zero and hero form. In that case I would include the Mon once in a form I feel represents it best. All the info is from Pokemon DB. I just copied it into a Google Sheet and edited out the aforementioned non-included Pokemon in order to average it out easier. I actually have Dragon as the heaviest on average, which I thought for sure would be Steel. It really helps their case that they have massively heavy legendaries. Granted, a lot of these have additional forms like a bunch of Kirums, bringing up the average. Fairy being lightest was a bit of a shock because I thought Ghost or maybe even Grass really had it, but a lot of these pink blobs are just filled with hot air, while even most of the dual types that tend to be heavier like Steel and Rock aren't that heavy when paired with Fairy. Are there any types you thought would be higher or lower? The heaviest free stage line ends up being the Metagross line, not including Megas of course, even though Mega Metagross is one of the heaviest Mons. They come in at 847 kilograms, which is 1,868 pounds, while the heaviest two-stage line is the Copperajah line, which aren't too far behind at 750 kilograms, which is 1,653 pounds, and of course is even higher if you're including heavy metal. If we were including heavy metal overall, then we have to mention the Aggron line. They all have heavy metal as a hidden ability and turn their 540 kilograms into 1,080 kilograms, which is around 2,381 pounds. The lightest free stage evolution line goes to the Jumpluff line, coming in at about 4.5 kilograms for the entire line, or about the weight of a small cat for Americans who will use anything except the metric system. I originally thought it would be the Gengar line after seeing Ghastly and Haunter weighing virtually nothing, but Gengar gains quite a bit of weight. I don't know if it's those new pearly whites added upon being traded or what. Other shocking weights that I've noticed while shuffling down this Bulbapedia page were Glalie being 256 kilograms and heavier than Mons like Mega Tyranitar and Solgaleo. Palossand is almost as heavy at 250 kilograms, which might make more sense when you read its dex entries, stating that it eats small Pokemon and siphons away their vital essence while they're still alive.
Bruh.
Wow. Skeledirge is 326 kilograms, which is definitely in range of the average Croc, but it just seems weird for a ghost-type Pokemon that isn't notably large to weigh that much. Clodsire is almost 3 times heavier than Quagsire, coming in at 223 kilograms. Batang is the heaviest not fully evolved Pokemon, disregarding Cosmoem. The lightest fully evolved Mon that isn't a one-stager is Cursula, coming in at 0.4 kilograms, and is a bit lighter than its pre-evolution Corsola. The lightest legendaries that can actually do something are the Lake Guardians, coming in at 0.3 kilograms each, which is less than a pound. Sableye goes from 11 kilograms in its base form to 161 when mega evolving. Some serious weight behind that gem. Gotta give Sableye its props for being able to hold it up like that. So Volley loses 20 kilograms when evolving from type Null, as its heavy helmet is removed, which also increases its speed in the process. Wishiwashi's solo form is 0.3 kilograms, and its school form comes in at 78.6 kilograms. This means if every fish is relatively the same weight, school form Wishiwashi is comprised of around 262 fish. Shelgon is heavier than Salamence, which didn't really make sense to me, and then you read that it hardly eats while waiting to evolve, so it might make more sense that all that fasting paid off. That's basically all there is to cover on weight in Pokemon, but I want to know if you think weight should have a bigger role in Pokemon, so weigh in your thoughts in the comments. By the way, the Every Pokemon Metronome Tournament predictions are currently underway. You can find the links to the voting in the description. Shoutouts to Jesus B for absolutely killing it in round 1 with the top score, even predicting the final matchup in winner, while Shinzao had the overall most picks correct. Special shout out to my YouTube and Patreon members, including Gold Bud Mr. Frank Beans. I have links in the description if you want to support the channel. Thanks for watching, buds, and I'll see you soon.